Point Pleasant, West Virginia, November 15, 1966. Two couples report being pursued down Route 62 by a winged humanoid creature traveling at 100 miles per hour. Local law enforcement documented the report. The story became legend, but legends don't submit themselves to physics. Today, we are not asking whether the Mothman exists. We are asking a more interesting question. If it did exist, how quickly would its own biology kill it? This is a forensic audit. Let's begin with the paperwork. Every creature that flies must solve the same engineering problem: how to generate enough lift to overcome its own weight. The metric we use to evaluate this is called wing loading, calculated simply as body weight divided by total wing surface area. The lower the ratio, the more efficiently a creature flies. The higher the ratio, the more the creature resembles a very motivated brick. Let's audit our subject. Eyewitness accounts describe the Mothman as a humanoid figure, approximately 6 to 7 feet tall, with a muscular build. We'll be conservative and estimate 200 pounds, roughly the weight of an average adult male. Now we need to find wings large enough to get that airborne. For reference, let's look at the largest flying animal in Earth's fossil record, Quetzalcoatlus northropi, a pterosaur with a wingspan of roughly 36 feet and an estimated weight of 550 pounds. Its wing loading was already pushing the absolute ceiling of what aerodynamics permits for biological flight. And Quetzalcoatlus was essentially a flying tent, hollow bones, almost no muscle mass, built like a kite with ambition. The Mothman, by contrast, is described as muscular. Muscular means dense. Dense means heavy. Heavy means our wing loading calculation moves from challenging to structurally offensive. But there's a deeper problem than surface area. A flying creature requires a keeled sternum, a protruding ridge of bone that anchors the massive flight muscles needed to drive powered wing beat. Birds have it. Bats have it. Humanoid primates emphatically do not. Our chest is flat. We are, from a flight engineering standpoint, shaped like a filing cabinet. Without a keeled sternum, Mothman has no anchor point for flight muscle. It wouldn't be soaring majestically over Point Pleasant. It would be falling very quickly in a direction generally described as down. But the eyewitnesses were very specific. It kept pace with a car doing 100 miles per hour. So let's assume, purely as a thought experiment, that it somehow solved the wing problem. Here's what would happen next, and it's significantly worse. In biology, there is a concept called the metabolic cost of transport, the energy required to move a given mass at a given speed. As speed increases, this cost does not scale linearly. It escalates aggressively. At 100 miles per hour, a biological organism of Mothman's estimated mass would need to generate a staggering amount of mechanical power, sustained power, not a brief burst. Hummingbirds, the metabolic Formula One cars of the animal kingdom, can sustain roughly 385 wing beats per minute during hovering and generate significant heat doing it. Now scale that demand up to a 200-pound creature flying at highway speeds. The thermal output is not incidental. It is catastrophic. At that level of metabolic exertion, the Mothman's core body temperature would begin rising almost immediately. This is not merely uncomfortable. At approximately 42 degrees Celsius, just a few degrees above normal, cellular proteins begin to denature. They unfold, lose their shape, and stop functioning. Enzymes stop catalyzing. Muscles stop contracting. The organism effectively cooks itself from the inside out. Mammals and birds manage this with sophisticated thermoregulation, panting, blood shunting, and in birds, a highly efficient air sac respiratory system that drives oxygen through the lungs in a continuous, one-directional flow. This system is 30% more efficient than mammalian tidal breathing, the inhale-exhale system that humans and, presumably, the Mothman use. A humanoid respiratory system cannot supply the oxygen demand of sustained high-speed powered flight. The musculature would hit anaerobic threshold within seconds. Lactic acid would accumulate. Performance would collapse. Our conclusion: without a dedicated radiator system and a complete respiratory redesign, a 100-mile-per-hour Mothman would have a functional flight window of approximately 2 miles before metabolic failure. It isn't a supernatural predator. It's a winged slow cooker with a very short warranty. We've grounded it and overheated it. Now let's talk about the feature that most people remember, those red glowing eyes, because this is where the audit gets genuinely interesting. The most consistent detail across all Mothman reports is the eye, described as large, red, and visibly glowing, even in darkness. From a biological standpoint, this single feature tells us the most. Specifically, it tells us we're looking at something much more mundane. There are two mechanisms by which eyes can appear to glow in the dark. The first is bioluminescent, the biological generation of light through chemical reaction, as seen in fireflies and deep-sea organisms. Producing visible red light from an eye socket would require an entire dedicated biochemical system, metabolically expensive and evolutionarily pointless for a predator. Glowing eyes announce you're present. Predators do not advertise. The second mechanism is eye shine, and this is where our audit pivots toward the actual explanation. Many nocturnal animals possess a reflective layer behind the retina called the tapetum lucidum. When an external light source, say a car's high-beam headlight, traveling at 100 miles per hour down a dark West Virginia road, strikes the tapetum lucidum, the eyes reflect the light back with striking intensity. Cats do this, deer do this, owls do this. Enter the sandhill crane, a bird that our audit formally identifies as the most probable source of the Mothman sighting. Consider the evidence. A sandhill crane stands up to 4 feet tall with a wingspan reaching 7 feet. It possesses a vivid red ocular mask covering its forehead and eyes. It produces a low, resonant, rattling vocalization that witnesses frequently describe as a hiss. It was present in the TNT area outside Point Pleasant, a region of abandoned munitions storage where the sightings were concentrated. When a sandhill crane takes flight in darkness, caught in vehicle headlights, wings spread, red mask illuminated, standing at eye level with a crouching human observer, the perceptual conditions for a winged humanoid with glowing red eyes are, biomechanically speaking, completely met. The monster was real. The interpretation of what it was not. But perhaps the most damning piece of evidence against the Mothman's existence isn't in its anatomy at all. It's in the math of survival. Let's assume, for the sake of completion, that the Mothman survived its aerodynamic inefficiency, its metabolic self-immolation, and its anatomically expensive eye arrangement. We still have a population problem. Conservation biology gives us a framework called the minimum viable population. The smallest number of individuals a species needs to maintain genetic diversity and survive long-term environmental pressures. For most large vertebrates, that number sits at approximately 500 individuals. Some models allow for smaller isolated populations with intense management, but the floor for unmanaged wild survival is rarely below 200. The Mothman has been cited by various enthusiasts and researchers for roughly 60 years. If it were a real breeding species, there would be a population of hundreds of large, thermally active, winged humanoids living somewhere in the Appalachian region. Now let's apply the 2026 technology audit. Thermal imaging drones can detect a warm-bodied organism through tree canopy cover. LiDAR mapping systems can identify large biological movement corridors. High-resolution satellite imagery can resolve objects under 1 meter in size. A 200-pound, warm-blooded flying organism with a 7-foot wingspan produces a thermal signature that no amount of cryptid cunning can suppress. Wildlife researchers locate animals this size routinely in dense forest environments. A breeding population of Mothman would have been cataloged, photographed, and given a genus name by approximately 2009. The silence of the scientific record is not suspicious. It is conclusive. What the eyewitnesses in Point Pleasant experienced was real. Genuine fear, genuine adrenaline, genuine perceptual distortion under high-stress conditions at night. The human brain, confronted with an unfamiliar large bird in its headlights, does exactly what it evolved to do. It fills in the gaps with the most threatening possible interpretation. This cognitive phenomenon has a name: pareidolia, the tendency to impose familiar, meaningful patterns onto ambiguous stimuli. The Mothman is not a missing link. It is a masterclass in how efficiently fear overwrites data. The legend of the Mothman is extraordinary. The biology of the Mothman is fatal to the Mothman. Wing loading grounds it, metabolic thermodynamics cook it, its respiratory system fails at speed. Its eyes follow the rules of reflection, not supernatural light generation. And 60 years of increasingly sophisticated surveillance technology has found nothing. The creature is a perfect piece of American folklore and an anatomical impossibility. Audit complete. Which biological impossible should we examine next? Leave your submission in the comments. Same methodology, same verdict.